actually like assign groups? Like, does everybody have at least one group that they're going to approach when they get home?
Yeah,
we have
the
a
usual,
strategic plan.
usual
Excellent. I see the overachievers over there. I have a strategic plan. That's excellent. Does everybody have a group that they're potentially going to approach? Great. Awesome. Well, that's great. So I wanted to just now get into this question about businesses, because it's a kind of a specific, businesses work a little bit differently than other types of groups. But businesses can be really powerful, especially in small towns. If you go, up and down Main Street of, a 2,000 population town, and you get 6 stores to sign on, those business people are often sort of pillars of community in a small town, and so that's going to really say something to a legislator in that district. Yeah.
How hard is it to get branches of chain on board?
It's very hard. I would definitely stick with the single owner, small local businesses, because big chains have their own kind of huge bureaucracy that is really hard to sort of navigate.
If only we could get Walmart.
I'm just thinking that's like the majority of businesses.
They don't even let workers' unions. I don't think Walmart will.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
That's not good.
Yeah, I mean it's hard. It's a lot of chains, and it's always about finding the parts of town that have the coffee shops and the local video store and the local bookstore and those kind of places. The bakery, hair salons are great because those are always local, or not always, but a lot of times hair salons and barbershops are local. Flower shops
Nail
are
shops.
often local. What?
Nail
Work for a
shops.
flower shop.
Nail shops.
Nail.
Nail salons. Those kinds of little stores are really helpful too. And so I'll just share sort of a little story with you. So after this bill passed the North Carolina Senate in 2003, the group in North Carolina decided that they wanted to have at least 5 resolutions from every single county in the state. And at that point, they had resolutions from maybe 60 or 70 counties, but they needed 40 more counties to go, and they needed to get them really fast. And churches can be like a 2-month, 3-month process to get it through the 20 different church committees, and however, it could be complicated. So they needed to figure out a way to get, cover 40 counties really fast and just rack up those 5 resolutions. And so what they did was they started doing canvassing of small businesses. And they would go to the county, and they would go to, basically find the sort of Main Street, county strip. And these were a lot of rural and small communities, not the big cities, because in the big cities they had already a lot of the groups. But this was where did they have nothing, right? So they went into these small towns, and they would just start walking up and down the street and going into these mom and pop stores. And I actually went down and did it for a week myself in North Carolina. I put on my kind of floral print skirt. So at the time my eyebrow was pierced, and I took out the eyebrow piercing and fake Southern accent. And I was like, okay, just so that none of these people think that I'm really a kid from New York. So I started going into these businesses, and basically, the North Carolina group basically said, here's a map, and these are the counties that we need. All right, so I get in the car. I've never even been to most of these counties in North Carolina, but I would find the county seat, which was the place that had the county courthouse, and that was usually a really good place to start, because there was usually a square right around the county courthouse that had those kinds of little stores. And I would just go into each store, and the script was sort of interesting. I would start out, the idea was to be as uninflammatory as possible, and to sort of make it very safe and reasonable and comfortable. And so you want to build a little bit of rapport with the person before you even tell them why they're there. So I would go in and I would say, hi, can I speak with the owner? And you always want to speak with the owner, because the owner is really the only person who has the power to sign their business onto this kind of statement. So usually the manager or other employees can't do it. So if the owner's not there, you're out of luck. You gotta go. You can come back later. So then I get to the owner and I would say, hi, my name is Shari, and I'm a volunteer with a nonprofit organization here in North Carolina. Not saying what the organization did or was about at this point. And the first thing I would say is, I'm not going to ask you for any money. And that was always right away, put them very much more at ease. And so then you already had them much more comfortable than they were 2 seconds ago. which is good. I'm not gonna ask you for any money. What we're doing is we are gathering, you know, organizations and businesses to sign on to this resolution, which is just like a petition but for businesses. And we're trying to get 1,000 resolutions by the end of this week. And I'm wondering if your business would be willing to sign on. And at this point, I still haven't mentioned the death penalty, right? And so then they're like, well, what does it say? And I would say, well, it's calling for the state of North Carolina to temporarily suspend executions because there have been all these cases of innocent people found on death row, and we really want them to step back and just look at why that's happening and figure out how to address it. Sounds very reasonable. And a lot of them really would say yes. Like, it, you know, it was shocking. I mean, I thought it was going to be really scary. And I avoided certain kinds of places, like avoid the pawn shops where they have lots of guns on the wall. But, you know, you got a lot more than you would think you would. And I remember there was this one town, I was in this one county, and it was the smallest county, I swear. There was like maybe 4 businesses in the entire county, and I wasn't supposed to leave the county until I got 5. So I go up and down Main Street like as many times as I can. I end up with 3 resolutions, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to see my mother again. I'm never going to get out of this town. I'm driving back and forth up and down the street looking for just one more business that I can go into, and I see this place called Milton's Auto Shop. It's really dilapidated, like falling apart, really scary. I was like, I'm not going in there. So I drive past it, and I still can't find any other businesses. And finally, I was like, all right, I got to go into Milton's Auto Shop. So I pull into Milton's Auto Shop parking lot. And immediately, as soon as I pull in, like 4 people from inside the store get up and look out the window, like, who the hell's coming to our store that no one ever comes to? And I'm thinking, I'm going to get shot. I'm not going to leave this place alive. So I go in and say, hi, is the owner here? And, you know, he says, yes, I'm the owner. And I go through my little spiel. And he cuts me off and he says, if I sign this thing, is it going to make it harder for the law to do its job? And I said, well, it's really not about making it harder for the law, it's just making it, you know. And he says, because I'll sign anything that makes it harder for the law to do its job. And so I said, well, then here you go. And he signs it, and then he calls his friend over, who owns her own like concrete company, and he says, come sign this thing. And I got my last 2 resolutions, and I thought, you know what? You just never know who your allies are going to be. So that's the process. And you know, when you're going through it, it's a really great thing to do in teams. Like if you can get 3 or 4 volunteers who are willing to spend like a Saturday afternoon or something, just like walking around town, and you get a clipboard, and you always keep the ones that people signed on top, so that when you're kind of there, like asking the person to sign it, they see that you have a bunch that are already signed. It makes them feel more comfortable. It already looks like they're just one of many. They're not doing anything that's kind of weird.
They're not being radicals.
They're not being radicals. And you can go in like groups of 2 and just kind of, you know, so that you're not by yourself. And it, you know, in a couple hours you can actually really rack up like quite a number of endorsements. So start to read them, and they have questions about different parts of the resolution. It's a good opportunity to get into like a dialogue about the issue too, and answer questions.
Do you know which states are already using it? Like,
The businesses specifically, or just resolutions in general?
well, like moratorium resolution campaign like this, do you know which states this is happening in?
Yeah, I know a lot of them. What's your state?
Idaho.
Idaho.
I don't think it is.
I don't know anyone in Idaho.
Okay.
It doesn't mean they're not doing it, but I don't think so, because a lot of the states that do it have talked to us about it, since we're the ones.
I highly doubt there's nothing going on with that position.
Well, then it's
Except for
time
the
to get
Mormons.
started. But yeah, I mean, they're being used in New York, New Jersey built their campaigns on it, Pennsylvania built a campaign around it, Maryland did, Ohio, Missouri, Indiana, Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina. Texas at one point was doing a lot of resolution stuff, slowed down a little bit. It's a different situation because the courts have suspended the death penalty in Kansas.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and so the campaign there is actually to sort of block it coming back as opposed to having a moratorium. Is that where you're from?
Yeah.
Kansas has basically been pretty neutral about everything,
Yeah.
all through history.
Yeah.
Except for evolution.
Yeah.
Kansas is like Switzerland.
Right. But I actually
What's going on with Missouri?
Missouri is an interesting.
Because like I know a guy just got like I don't know if he got pardoned or he got like a stay of execution or something.
In Missouri?
Yeah, in Missouri.
Yeah, in Missouri there was a guy, well, there's a couple cases in Missouri that are interesting. There's a guy who's got a stay based on the lethal injection protocol.
Yeah.
So that's coming before the courts. There's also a case of a guy who was executed that the prosecutor reopened the case because there's evidence that he was innocent. And that was the first case in history in the modern era in the U.S. where a person who's already executed had their case reopened by a prosecutor. And that's still under investigation, so we don't know what the outcome is going to be. But most people who know anything about the case strongly believe that the guy's innocent. So it's just a question of whether they come up with the proof on that. Missouri has had a moratorium bill introduced, and this year for the first time with Republicans sponsoring it. And there's actually 8 Republicans who sponsored the Senate resolution, which is pretty amazing. Because a lot of times people think about the Democrats as being easier to get, but in a state like Missouri, where it's mostly Republicans in the legislature, you need to be able to get support from that party as well.
So the movement there is mainly to get the resolution passed in the legislature.
Yeah.
To get started.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Are you from Missouri?
I'm from Kansas City, which is
Okay.
between,
Oh, but you're in the Kansas side.
yeah,
Okay.
like Missouri and Kansas.
Yeah.
Not really.
There's a very active group in Kansas City, Missouri, that's focusing Kansas City, that I can hook you up with.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, but in Kansas, the goal is more sort of abolition focused than moratorium focused because of the sort of strange scope of the death penalty.
I think our big problem is just getting people to care because we haven't executed anyone for like 40 years.
Right.
But we still have the death penalty.
What I want to start with is a spectrum. This is called a spectrum activity, and basically what our maps go to do is line up in sort of where you stand on the spectrum. So, for example, if I say, like, on this side of the room is, I totally love chocolate, and on that side of the room is, I totally hate chocolate. Then, depending on how you feel about chocolate, you'll like place yourself somewhere on this line. Does that make sense? So, on this side of the room is, this seems really exciting. I can't wait to go out and get like 20 businesses to endorse a moratorium, and I'm going to be the first one to go do it. And then this side of the room is, like, are you kidding? I do not want to talk to anyone about this. This sounds like the most terrifying thing I've ever done. Please leave me alone. Go ahead. All right, so on this side are the moratorium activists, and on this side are the business owners. And what I want you to do is get into your park. So moratorium activists, think about like your little clipboard of all the resolutions that you have, and it's a bright sunny day, and you're going out and you're walking around town, and you're thinking about like, what are you going to say? Are you a little bit nervous? Are you not nervous? How are you going to convince this person to sign this resolution? Does the campaign feel exciting to you? Is there other stuff going on? What are some of the issues in your state that you want to share? Kind of get in character. Business owners over here, you're kind of busy, it's sunny, you don't really want to be working, but you're running this little store, you don't totally want to be bothered, but you're nice people. You believe in, your local communities and the common good, and you're certainly open to listening. And you've got customers around that you've got to deal with, but it doesn't mean you can't take 2 minutes out to talk to somebody if they're going to come and talk to you. So get in character. And take a minute to do that, and then just with your partner, sort of role play for a second, the moratorium activist coming and asking the business owner to sign the resolution. And then we'll switch, so everybody will get to do both parts. All right, ready?
So we're just.
Got it?
Everybody
Any
one time, or
questions?
you gonna do it one at a
No, everybody will work. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm
No.
Okay, go.
I've been actually out all day, walking around, talking to why do we still have so high? moratorium, which is a temporary halt to legislation, while we can actually take a step back and no, the goal is to be in the process and to basically abolish the death penalty because in the current situation it's a waste of money and resources because it's not really being used, and if it's not being used, public opinion seems to be swaying that it shouldn't be used. Absolutely. Yes, it's making it basically legally acknowledged that we don't use the death penalty and examine the process and see, what the laws are in the system and solve them by abolishing the death penalty. Yeah, we need to do research on this.
Okay, so finish up your last thoughts.
But we still people are still sentenced to death. We just don't know.
So, how many of you were successful? How many people signed the resolution?
I think it's pretty easy in this group.
Good job, good job.
I don't know. Good part.
So, I want to hear from my business owners. What are some of the things that work to convince you to sign the resolution? What they do well? Anyone?
She made the situation really comfortable. She didn't attack anything specifically,
Mm-hmm.
and did a good job.
Great.
He bought something from me.
Oh, that's
Robbery works.
That's a good idea.
Well, in the little towns and the areas that I live in, you go and you become that patron, and they see you all the time. They start recognizing your name, and then you hit them up. It works every time. It works every time. It really does. But no, we haven't signed yet as business owners over here. So.
but you were about to.
No, we weren't.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking about buying that table over there, but I was wondering.
Has your organization talked about that, like being a patron at these stores you approach?
If you're pushing from like
Yeah,
in
not-
each town, that'd get really expensive.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, it's, if you're doing it locally in places that you already patronize, that's, yeah. I don't think I really bought anything when I did it, so, but it's not a bad idea. So, any other things that worked well from your perspective as signers?
Explaining the legal situation in depth instead of just saying death penalty is bad. This is why. Okay. Anyway, see you later.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Explain the local situation.
Right.
I don't know. Oh, sorry.
No, go.
Okay. I don't know if it helped be for him to decide, but he asked me like who else is on board, and I just made up all these other organizations that are on board. And obviously, if we were really doing, we'd say
The truth.
the truth. And I think I don't know. Would that affect me? Would that be okay?
I think if you had that list,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
so
'cause it
bringing
makes it
out a
like a part of
printout list.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things you can do is you can go to our website, which is listed on all the materials you have. And if you go to the national tally, there's actually a list of all 4,000 groups. And so you could just like cut and paste the ones from your state if you wanted to, like a Word document. And then you'll have it with you to give it out.
What works for
Yeah.
us when we go and do this is the fact that the biggest concern is that justice is not going to be served during this moratorium period. So we go, oh, no, it still is. We can still give out the death penalty. And then they're, okay, as long as justice is being done, and then they'll sign.
Then they'll sign, yeah.
So yeah, it's really, you have to be educated on what a moratorium is.
Exactly.
That way, in case somebody does go, so you're telling me that if I sign this, that means that I'm going to join a bunch of people that justice is not going to be served, because that's what it is in a lot of people's head, is that we're serving justice. So yeah, you go, no, justice will still be served. It's still handed out.
Great.
We just can't do it for 3 years. It takes us 8 to 10 years anyway. Oh, okay. And then they start signing it. So yeah, you have to know the other side in order to talk to the other side. And going to a lot of pro-death penalty websites, you actually learn how to do your arguments by joining different pro-death penalty forums and going and checking out their websites. You will learn how to argue by just reading that or receiving newsletters from these people, and it works.
Definitely. So what about my moratorium activist? How did it feel? Comfortable?
Felt really good, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know, I was just trying to be as friendly as possible and know that even if she was totally pro-death penalty and she's going to be like, nope, I think we should get them all, I'd be like, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a fabulous day. Just to keep
Great.
that in mind the whole time, that you're going to be positive.
That's excellent. Yeah.
like I mean, this is the first time I've done it, so I wasn't really quite sure how to start the conversation. So if I was really going to do this, which I want to, I'd like kind of like really prepare a spiel
Right.
to make it easy.
Right.
Sometimes it's easier when you're like actually in the environment because you can talk about things that are around you, you know, like I work in the school newspaper, so I interview people a lot, so you know, I kind of know how to like, hey, how's it going? Oh, like, how's your day been? Did you just get back from doing whatever? Like, you can bring in things that are like about their appearance or like what's around them and talk about it and start a
Right.
little conversation.
Yeah,
And
and
then-
it's always a little harder in this like suspended animation
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah.
Like, even if you just talk about the weather, like, oh man, like, it's raining really hard outside, you know, like,
Candace weather's crazy.
yeah, like,
So, are you all on the switch? Business owners over here? And oh no, you guys
I
can
guess,
stand.
yeah, I guess we can sit.
You can actually stand. So for my business owners now, think about again. You know, you got this store, you got some work to do, you got your customers. Person comes in and approaches you. How do you feel about that? What do you think about your business? Positions on political issues.
We're the
Get in
store,
character.
here's Ecclesiastes.
And for my more
Jackson.
With local organizations, just like as in here. Oh, okay.
It's such obviously bad when you execute. I heard about the story.
It's still handed out.
And it's so.